I was working on YouTube videos at LAX the other day and something caught my eye. It was a giant sign that said elevator, and it got me thinking. Having sex in an elevator is a pretty common fantasy. I mean, I myself am no stranger to the thrill of knowing that I could get caught in the act. But if there's one thing that I know, it's that there is a right and a wrong way to get down to business in public. And for sure the wrong way is the elevator at LAX. I'm not at all going to recommend that for you or anybody else. If you are serious about how to get it on in public responsibly, then stick around because I'm gonna share my top tips. And these are literally my top tips. These are not just like Caitlin as a sex educator. Like, I know a thing or two about getting away with it. And I'm gonna share what I have learned with you. Okay, so my first experience with this was obviously with my high school boyfriend in the back of his car outside of an arcade. Obviously very classic, right? But since then, I've fooled around in bar bathrooms, stairwells, alleyways, doorways, rooftops, dance floors, construction sites, cars, both parked and in motion, and out in nature now and again. And none of which is an admission of guilt, okay? But hear me out. Since that time in high school, I have only gotten caught once, and that I really did have coming because I did not take my own advice. That's the advice that I'm going to share with you in just a moment. So listen up and learn from my mistakes, guys. In fact, go ahead and subscribe right now so that you can learn from all of my mistakes and the things that I've gotten right. Here's the thing. Having sex in public is pretty illegal. And as thrilling as that thought might be, the consequence of getting put on the sex offender registry makes it a pretty risky kink to try to fulfill. Not to mention, getting caught doesn't only affect the people doing the deed, it's also the person catching you. And although many of us would probably just laugh it off, there are situations where walking into people having sex could have serious negative implications for the person who catches them. I mean, think of the children. That out of the way, let's dive right in. Here are my 6 tips for getting it on in public. Number 6. Check with your partner. As always, consent is the most important thing, and even though a lot of people share the kink of fooling around in public, for some people it's just gonna be a hard no. So if you've been following me for a while, thank you, then you know that in my opinion, more communication is better. You can have a general chat about this kind of exploration at home. You don't have to give them away, all of the details, but just ask them what their boundaries would be. Is this something that they're interested in exploring? That way, when you see the perfect alleyway or the dark little stairwell, you already have an idea of whether or not they would be open to exploring it with you. And if you don't have a chance to have a broader conversation, maybe this is like a first date, at the very least, you should have a brief, explicit verbal check-in before initiating any kind of sex, whether that's public or private. Number 5, do your recon. All right, now assuming that you're both on the same page and you're DTF, let's get into some of the practical tips. And the most important of which is to do your reconnaissance. If you're not familiar with that term, it is the military observation of a region to locate an enemy or ascertain certain strategic features. So consider the reality of the situation. Are there cameras? How likely are you to get walked in on? Is there a chance that a minor or a child is going to walk in on you? Can you lock the door? Are people going to hear you? I mean, the risk is part of the fun, but you want to be very well aware of just how much risk is involved and make sure that you're okay with it. Number 4, keep most of your clothes on. All right, on that note, if you are getting it on in any place that has any risk of getting caught, do yourself a favor and keep as much clothing on as possible. By the way, for those of you who are paying attention, this is what got me in trouble that one time that I did get caught. I'm talking, pull just your zipper down, move those underwear to the side. The last thing that you want is to be scrambling for your clothing when you hear someone approaching. The key to successful public sex is subtlety and speed, okay? You want to be able to get in and out as fast as possible, and that means keeping your belongings on you. Brings me to number 3, don't break the sink. All right, I've never done this, but I have heard some horror stories. Sinks, railings, tables, any other breakable objects that you might be putting your weight on. I cannot tell you how many times I have heard a story about people getting it on in a bathroom in a bar and breaking the sink or the piece of furniture or at the party in the bathroom or the guest's bedroom or something along those lines. The last thing that you want to do is have to deal with the panic of damaging someone else's property property, especially if that property also starts shooting water everywhere. So before putting your weight on anything, make sure that it can really hold you and hold you while you're like moving back and forth, okay? Trust me, the mood will sour real quick if one of you falls and hurts yourself. That I actually can tell you from experience. That brings me to number 2. Remember, you don't have to go all the way. Look, when we're horny, the desire to get in there and do full-on penis in vagina penetration, totally understandable. Having said that, we also have got to be realistic about what's possible under the specific circumstances. If you're hard, she's wet, y'all are alone, maybe like a secluded beach somewhere, you're already in your bathing suits, pull them to the side and get to it. But let's be realistic. Bodies do not work the way we want them to 100% of the time, even in the best of circumstances. So you may have to settle for a little finger action, maybe a little quick dip rather than say a full-on blowy, all right? You're already pushing it by getting it on in a place where you might get caught. So when it comes to public sex, you really have to calculate how much you think you can get away with and then settle for that. And that brings me to number 1, my best advice for getting out in public. Do not worry about the big O. When you are sneaking in a little public nookie, orgasm is not really the goal. I'm not saying that you can't come. I'm just saying that we all get a little woozy, starry-eyed during a big orgasm. And oh my God, that's part of the fun. But it is important to remember that you need to be on alert, okay? You gotta keep your whips about you. Your whips. Yeah, you keep your whips about you too. You gotta keep your wits about you and do not get lost in that O sauce. Consider that for most folks, getting across the finish line is gonna take time, and if you're sneaking into an elevator or a stairwell, you don't exactly have time on your side. And that's why orgasm should not be the goal here. The only goal here is the thrill. Well, and walking away from the situation without any hard consequences or handcuffs, okay? When it comes to this kind of sex, I consider it more like foreplay for the main course, as well as something that you're gonna wanna put into the spank bank for later. Oh my God, wasn't that so hot? I can't believe that we did that. It's fun, it's risky, it can make your relationship feel alive. This is not the time to put pressure on making each other come. Now, I am not saying that you should just run out and start getting it on public, but I do know that y'all are gonna do what you're gonna do, and I would rather that you do it responsibly. Think of me, Caitlin V, kind of like the chill parent who would buy coolers for their teenagers and their friends. Like, I'd rather just know that you're doing it safely at my house than you're out drinking God knows what with God knows who, okay? Now you have all of the information that you need. Get out there and have some fun, you crazy kids. I'm Caitlin V, thanks for watching, and I will see you here next week.